Call the October 22nd Plan Commission meeting to order. Mr. Martinez, please call the roll. Or Mr. Eddy, please call the roll.
Mayor Olson,
Here.
Commissioner Hogan,
Here.
Commissioner Burkhardt,
Here.
Commissioner Haley,
Here.
City Engineer Morrow,
Here.
Alderman D'Andrea,
Here.
Commissioner Leon.
Here. We have a quorum. Please rise. Join the Pledge of Allegiance. First item on the agenda is approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 8th. Any additions or corrections?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for the HSA guys. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. You're not coming back. Thanks for being here tonight. We kind of feel a little lonely here tonight. We're not used to the sparse crowd. We're gonna take things a little out of order. Sorry, Eric. We're gonna go to item 2 first. Andrew M. Stevens and Heather M. Stevens, permanent above-ground swimming pool installation. Mr. Martinez, you have a public hearing notice for this.
I'll read it.
You guys got, anyway, you do this to keep me on my toes, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Mr. Eddy, you have a public hearing notice.
Notice hereby given that the Plan Commission of the City of Franklin will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 22, 2020 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in the Common Council Chambers at the Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132, to hear public comment regarding an application by Andrew M. Stevens and Heather M. Stevens for an area exception for the property located at 7752 West Briarwood Drive, tax key number 885-0052-000, Block 4, Lot 16 in Stonewood Edition Number 1. The subject property is zoned R5 Suburban Single Family Residence District. The application requests an area exception from Table 15-3.0206 of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow for a maximum lot coverage of 21.7%, 2,935 square feet, exceeding the R5 Suburban Single Family Residence District maximum lot coverage standard of 20%, or 2,700 square feet, for the installation of a permanent above-ground swimming pool on the rear yard of the property, 10 feet from the backyard lot line, and in excess of 10 feet from either side yard lot line. Pool is approximately 346 square feet with a diameter of 21 feet. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements and standards of Section 15-10.0209 of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and provide input.
Here's we have a properly noticed public hearing. Are you going to do this part of it?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, give us the highlights.
So this is an area exception request to allow for additional lot coverage to install an above-ground swimming pool. So currently with the home and the new garage and the existing shed, this property is at the maximum 20% of lot coverage. So they would like to install the above-ground swimming pool at this location, a permanent above-ground swimming pool that will be over the maximum allowed lot coverage. So that will increase to 22.8%, and according to the ordinance, the maximum that the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals may allow with an area exception is 24%. So this will be within the permissible request for an area exception. The location of the swimming pool comply with the setback requirements, but I would like to note that in the September BCBA meeting, the board reviewed 2 minor variances for higher fences to block the view to adjacent above-ground swimming pools. It's not in this subdivision, it's in other part of the city, but that is a case that happens frequently. So we have two minor variances last month for higher fences. So.
But there is no fence on this property.
No, I'm talking about other cases in other subdivisions that request for higher fences to block the view to above-ground swimming pool. This is not the case, but it's just worth noting.
Okay. So this is the prior pool.
Right, that's the path for the temporary pool, above-ground swimming pool, yeah.
And just to orient everybody, this is east, north, south, west, of course. Because the other drawings are oriented differently.
Yeah, the north is to the left, yeah.
Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing on this project. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing no one from the public rise, I will close the public hearing. Questions from the commission for staff or the applicant is here as well. Alderman Dandria. Who is the alderman? for
I'm
the
with
district?
the assumption that this is a chlorinated pool. And are you going to have permanent heating on this, pool? Oh, why don't you come up?
One of the Stevenses,
Oh,
or
yeah.
both, actually. Give us your name and address, even though we've got it on.
It's Andrew Stevens, 7752 West Briarwood Drive.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Yes, to answer, yes, it will be heated, electric, grounding rods, the whole works, everything around it is up to code, is the plan. The spot that you saw in the picture of the sand circle, that we normally put up a temporary 15-foot intact pool that we take down. It's a 48-inch tall one. We've been doing that 2-3 years. It just putting it up, taking it down every year. Kids love it. We have a great time. You know, take the ladder out every night, stuff like that. Just it's tough to keep it warm with the solar cover, and just like to make it a little more enjoyable. Our winters are too long, and our summers aren't long enough. So it'd be nice to have it heated. So that's what we're looking to do. When we did do the addition, never really thought about the 20% that a pool would come into consideration with that. So that's kind of where we're at now. But otherwise, the addition went great. Everything with you guys went really good. The neighbors are real happy with it. So we're just looking to keep moving forward with the family. So
The discharge, when you winterize your pool, you've got an agreement with your neighbors that there won't be any, there shouldn't be that much flooding anyways, and it's only temporary, and it pretty much seeps into the ground, or do you have plans to just direct it to the road and into the sewer system?
the back of my yard is it comes. We both come together, and there's a sewer right in the corner of my yard.
Oh, okay, you have a
Yep.
tank, or system there, okay.
There was a problem with your neighbor to the east, just so you know. So
Okay.
don't make it go to the east.
Okay.
And it appears
From your
that,
former alderman, don't make it go to the east.
Okay.
it appears that you've got some, one of your neighbors is perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, and Pete's gonna come over and
The
be
Borellis?
he's gonna be your crazy cousin Eddie from
Okay.
European Vacation.
Otherwise, I don't have any other questions. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Commissioner Leon.
So I gotta start with the city attorney. So there was an item before the BZBA last night, and I got an answer from the city attorney that was as lawyery a lawyer statement as I could imagine. But I had some questions for a different type of request, but I had some questions for an applicant last night. Am I allowed to consider any of the things that was on a completely separate type of variance request?
I guess that if the question arose from you. And
Yes.
essentially, the question was, is the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals in effect bound by precedent set by decision on prior applications of the same type? And the answer was no.
Okay, all right.
And the answer also was, and I know staff did mention other applications in this category. But the thought from Legal Services Department was each application and each property is unique. And this is not a quasi judicial hearing in front of the Plan Commission, but it is in front of the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals. So the recommendation was, don't worry about other applications. You know, and it's a normal experience for board members to think, did we do this before, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of precedent, there is no precedent. The facts are the facts for this particular application, and that's what you're looking at.
All right, thank you. All right, so I do want to remain consistent, though, on the questions that I had. I'll ask you, and I see a statement here about that the exception will not be detrimental specifically to public safety. If we can pull the photo back up, I see that there are no fences. So to have a pool in a backyard with no fences, I would normally look to see something like gating. In fact, my next door neighbor has an above-ground pool, permanent, has gating and everything to make it more difficult for young children, for the most part, to get to. And I heard you mention that you take your ladder out every night and 48-inch high, so I get why that would address part of that. You had a temporary pool. Sounds like this is very similar in size. How many years did you have a temporary pool, and did you ever have any issues with neighbor kids coming by on their own or with your own kids? I have kids myself, I know how it works, where there was a concern about a kid who can't swim well enough getting into your pool.
Right, it's been 3-4 years now and never had an issue. The ladder we put in the locked shed every night. But most people never even know it's there because you can't see it. You really can't see it from any side of the house except for the side view from the two neighbors in the backyards with the evergreens on the back. You can't see it from the street, and then you can't see it from the front of the house, either direction. It's pretty well hidden. Nobody really ever even, most neighbors, they don't even remember that we had it, until we tell them. They're like, oh, okay, now we saw why when they brought it up to us was from when they got the letter in the mail, so.
And I guess I misspoke a bit. If I'm oriented right, east is to the top. It looks like the neighbor has a fence, correct? So I don't know if they have kids or not, but is that a fence that I see on their property line?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is a fence. Their pool is recessed into the ground. Their
So-
lowest point, maybe 24 off the ground, something like that.
Got it. So basically not visible from anywhere around the house, and there is at least one fence in line to deter any kids from getting in there and being a risk to public safety. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hogan.
I just had a question. Were you thinking in the future to put a deck in with this pool, the new one?
We were thinking about it. We do know the rules with having to have a gate on the deck. Is that something that would play a part with this pool?
That's just a question that I
Okay.
am proposing.
Yeah,
That's all.
we were considering it.
Okay.
Thought we'd start with this part first.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alderman Danger?
Are there any other questions of the commission? Then I'll just make a general comment. Being one that does own an in-ground pool, and I do have a fence around it, that fence does not keep teenagers out of it. Just so you remember that. And it's much bigger than the one they has, and it's much deeper. This is not going to be deeper than 4 feet, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's all of it. Otherwise, I'll make a
One
motion.
second. Mr. Seaton.
Question for staff. Discussion about a deck. I'm assuming the deck would be on the outside of the pool and in effect widen the area of the property being used. Would that not require a further area exception?
Yeah, they will require a further area
Okay,
exception.
Just wanted that stated for the record.
You don't want a deck.
I'm sorry?
You don't want a deck. Alderman Dandria.
And they have it close to their patio anyways, so. So I'm going to make the motion to recommend approval of an application for an area exception to allow for a maximum lot coverage of 21.7%, 2,935 2,935 square feet. Application requests an area exception from Table 15-3.0206 of the Unified Development Ordinance, exceeding the R5 suburban single-family resident district maximum lot coverage standard of 20%, or 2,700 square feet, for the installation of a permanent above-ground swimming pool on the rear yard of the property, 10 feet from the backyard lot line and in excess of 10 feet from either side yard lot line. Pool is approximately 346 square feet with a diameter of 21 feet. For property located at 7752 West Briarwood Drive, Lot 16 in Stonewood Addition Number 1 subdivision.
Second.
Commissioner Leo.
Just, I would ask a comment, to clarify, I'm not talking about teenagers, I'm talking about younger children like I have who might tell you that they can swim, but can't, right? And that's my concern, is young children who would not. But it sounds like you got a pretty good plan in place.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Go forth and swim. It's going to get chilly. Thanks, take care. Move back to item C1, HSA Commercial Real Estate Industrial Building Development in the proposed business parking plan development number 39. We have opened this public hearing, so we will just ask for, we have opened the public hearing, so any comments on the public, from the public on this matter? The public hearing is open. Any comments from the public on this public hearing? With that, I will close the public hearing on this matter. The applicant is here. So questions on this matter for the applicant? Come on up there. You can have a seat at the table.
Even better.
For the record, no one appeared for the public hearing on this matter. So guys, give us your names and addresses and affiliations, please, for the record, and welcome.
I'm Eric Ogden. I'm with HSA, Commercial Real Estate. Our address is 100 South Wacker in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm here with our architect, Warner Brisky.
Warner Brisky, Partners in Design Architects, 2610 Lake Cook Road, Riverwoods, Illinois.
Thanks. Do I have to push this? Thank you. Do I have to push this to make it work? Okay.
We've got a whole bunch of exceptions, but tell us about the building first, and let's go from there.
Sure. The project is for a two-building campus, 150,000 square foot each, spec industrial, warehouse distribution, corporate office space within the newly developed, or developing, I guess, still, park, I guess what, Franklin Corporate Park. As you can see, there's two identical buildings at 150,000 square feet apiece. The parking is oriented to the north, the docks are all oriented to the south, so all the truck traffic would be south of the building, separated from the car traffic. We are setting these up for single tenant or multi-tenant use, leasing, depending on the tenants that become available. There is a possibility of a single tenant for the entire lot. In other words, there is a potential user out there looking for approximately 300,000 square feet. And so there's a possibility we would be pursuing this as a single building as opposed to two separate buildings built in two phases. The current intent is to build it in two phases, build the east building first this coming year in '21, starting in the spring and having it ready early fourth quarter. And then the other building would lag behind that, potentially, depending on leasing again, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, something along those lines. The building is designed as a institutional grade spec industrial building built with load-bearing precast concrete wall panels, painted, a steel superstructure, columns and joist girders and beams and open web joists inside. We are 36 foot clear, sorry. Go back and forth on some projects, so I get confused sometimes. Building is being designed at 36 clear and will be designed to appeal to a wide range of tenants that hopefully will come to Franklin or expand in Franklin and continue to do business here. That's the big picture. Does that work? Is there something I missed? Anything you would like me to address specifically?
Eric, let's talk a little bit about the value of the building.
Yeah, so, it seems like cities have their own kind of calculus, their own math. I just look at it in terms of production cost and then ultimate market value. The production cost on a property like this is going to be in excess of $60 a foot, and, the market value on that would probably be, in excess of $70 a foot. So, for one building, well, the combined development, quick math, production cost should be north of $18 million. Ultimate market value, I think you could just simply throw $20 million at it, and that'd be a conservative number.
So for our number, assessed value would be about
Sure.
for each.
For both?
No, that'd be total. That'd be total.
And it sits on how many acres?
What is our acreage? 15?
Okay. That's fine. Rough number. That's good. We're okay. Questions from the, Eric, that's fine. About $1 million now. Questions from the commission? We're asking for several, asking for 5 waivers from the 27th Street standard. Can, Regulo, can you put up the business park area map? So we can get an idea of where this is in relation, there we go.
Good general question.
So here is where the building is going to be located. Specifically down here. So you get the idea, as you recall from all of our conversations, this was the high-end area with frontage on 27th Street also being high-end. And this is going to be our more industrial area. So here's your perspective. This is the Billard property that we keep talking about. This will be the first 2 buildings in the Billard property.
Good general question.
Commissioner Moore, seeing here.
I do know that when your site was being developed, it was assumed that you could make up the grade on your neighbor's property to the south, MLG's property. And then discussion with MLG, they weren't quite aware of those discussions. So how are you, or have you addressed the feathering out, if you will, of your grades to your neighbor's grades? I haven't, it just occurred to me that I don't think I ever heard a resolution to that issue.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on your question, sir.
So your neighbor to the south,
Yes.
the initial grading had showed that basically you're going to build your parking lot and then make up grading to the south, basically go on your neighbor's property. I don't know that your neighbor knew that as of less than a month ago. Have you resolved that issue?
It hasn't even been brought to my attention.
I-
This is the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that. We do have a proposed temporary grading easement on the portion of that property called out in the plans.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I guess, the mechanism.
As of a month ago, I don't think your neighbor knew about that easement, so
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Can you, let me clear this, try to clear this up. Can you describe your relationship with the property owner?
With Scott Beller? Well, we'd be purchasing the property from Scott. Our agreement is such that he is to deliver the property at a rough graded elevation with certain compaction requirements. So it should basically be a pad-ready, shovel-ready sale site. And so I guess I would assume that any grading issues between he and the neighbor, our site and the neighbor, should be worked out, as part of his preparation of the site for us.
And they may have, I wasn't aware of that, so.
Yeah.
Basically, what it was looking like is you guys might have to build a wall on your property.
Big pardon?
It was looking like you guys might have to build a wall on your property if,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, we can talk with our civil. I would think he would be aware of it, but I would assume that would be a condition of Scott's preparation of the site for us.
okay. Acknowledged.
Commissioner Haley?
Thank you. Just to follow up on that same thing, yes, you're clearly showing it as an area that needs to be temporarily graded. And in looking at the plans, it's about a 10-foot cut. So there's a fairly steep slope that will be left there on your neighbor's property. So this is something that definitely should be resolved in advance. I'm going to assume you'll figure that all out. But then there's also how that should be restored. I mean, currently it's farm field. I don't know if it's going to be farmed, but it's one of the missing pieces on your site plan. It shows temporary grading happening there, but we don't really know what's
Well,
happening.
it's
And as the engineer points out, if you can't do it in grades, you're going to end up putting a retaining wall in there, because it's about 10-foot vertical.
To clarify, my understanding is the grading is permanent. It's a temporary easement to allow the grading to occur. That's my understanding.
That makes sense. The question I'm asking is how that's going to be left, because what's now a farm field 10 feet above your parking lot is going to be laid back. So there'll need to be some slope in there, some way to address that, either with vegetation or walls or something.
Sure.
It's just one of those curious things that showed up, and the engineer picked up on it as well.
No, understood. That would have to be obviously stabilized and planted or blanketed or seeded or something. So
The
that
plans
it's-
don't address
it's not
it,
constantly
but I'm sure you
eroding.
can.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Haley, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand the big picture, because I know what we're trying to do here. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with not knowing the ultimate use. I mean, we're being asked to grant a special exception for something we don't know what it is. And I've gone through the plans in detail, and I think they're fairly comprehensive, and the mystery is what is it? And what if it's inconsistent with where we're going in Franklin? And I understand you're not in a position to tell us that now, but there's a bit of discomfort on my side, because we're being asked to approve something we just don't know what it is. Again, given that, the plans are good, the detail is there, I've got questions on them, especially the exceptions, and I assume we'll work through that. But
Sure.
There's just a little bit of discomfort that I have. While we're here and going nowhere, sheet C8, sheet C16, you need to revisit that one. All the notations on the page are referencing the City of Kenosha standards and specifications, and I'm guessing that's not what Franklin wants.
That probably not.
So somebody needs to go through that, and it may be in other documents, I just picked up on it there. So let's get that cleaned up, whatever happens.
Absolutely.
I saw those too.
Apologize.
Thanks.
If the engineer were here, I'd be flogging him right now.
You can flog him double, because I picked up on it too. Kevin, you still have the
Okay,
floor.
so I guess one of the, couple things I'm trying to understand here. It's suggested that this may be some sort of e-commerce thing or whatever. And again, that's acceptable. I guess I'm wondering whether we can narrow this down and specify the special usage to either e-commerce or a couple of narrower categories. I mean, I would just hate to see this come back and be constructed as something completely different, because we just don't know. Is there a way to fine tune that a little bit?
Well, I believe the additional uses, and I'm trying to find it in here because I didn't bring the full submittal package. I just brought the comments and I thought it was in here. I'm looking for the specific language we were looking to have permissible.
Yes, because it almost, at some point as I was reading it here, it almost seemed as if you were asking us to add that SIC code to the approval of this. It would make more sense if that happened by some other action.
Let me just explain a little bit, and our broker does this, articulates this very well in terms of what's happening in the marketplace right now, is that things are moving pretty quickly. I mean, as you see, Amazon has obviously taken over chunks of real estate quite significantly within the general regional area. Some of those buildings are, getting started as spec buildings and then being purchased by them or being leased by them, and they're taking over. Some of them are being developed directly for them. That's a tenant. That's not necessarily our target tenant. That's not, I can say, I think that's not who the 300,000 square foot possible user is. But the market's moving pretty quickly. Product pretty much needs to be in place in order to have a chance at a deal. For somebody to be coming out and start looking for 150,000 square foot space, or even 100,000, a portion of that, and then, start the process, looking for a site, identifying a site, going through approvals, designing the building, building the building, that deal's long gone. It's found another place that's already queued up and is either in process or exists. So having product available, or at least coming available, is key to being able to lease the property. Otherwise, it won't happen. And that's just the way the market is being driven right now, and has been for a while. As far as the uses, what we're trying to avoid is a situation where we're trying to, I guess, open up the available uses so that when HSA is making proposals, there are no contingencies on that. We understand that this is an allowable use within this location, and we know that we can proceed forward. Obviously, if there are anybody that's doing anything hazardous or outside of that window, or has, other issues of noise and pollution and different things, those I assume would still fall under like a conditional use process or something like that, to have that company come back. And those companies generally are used to that. They know that because they have those situations that they need to get approval. But we're trying to get, I guess, open up the window of acceptable uses so that we can move forward more efficiently and hopefully get this leased and get you some tax base faster.
Regular, can you put up the south elevation, please?
Sorry.
South elevation. This is the rear elevation then. This is how, frankly, I propose that we control the uses. Not a lot of docks.
But there are accommodations to double the number of docks, right there, the hatched
But
areas.
the way you do, but they gotta come back if they wanna do that. That's how you do that.
Okay, changing the subject a little bit, and maybe this is better for the city engineer. The storm system, plans are very clear how you're capturing what you're doing. It appears to just be going to this new basin that'll be created on the east side of the building, which
Correct.
ultimately connects with other to-be-constructed basins to the north of the parcel. Is that what I'm understanding? So there's really nothing happening on the site. It's all going to the city street storm sewer system, and that's part of the regional street system, storm.
The city engineer.
I guess my question is to the ultimate, where does the water go ultimately?
Mike.
So, first of all, I should acknowledge that this is under review by my staff, so they will catch things like Kenosha. They're checking the math on drainage and that sort of thing.
You're gonna.
So, my recollection is that, I believe it all goes to at least maybe two of those ponds, and it fills up and it basically crosses the road and then discharges to a small receiving, I want to call it a little stream on the other side of the road. So that's ultimately where it goes. Our street system actually drains to those ponds also. So but these ponds will actually, if I recall correctly, will actually be owned by the association or whatever you're calling your group. And so this lot and the other lots across the street will all share in the management and maintenance of those ponds. They will not be the city ponds.
What about the ultimate destination of the basin on the east side of the building? I'm assuming that's new, and it's clearly shown as outside the property line. So is that lot, is there be an outlot?
I
Yep.
believe that's an outlot.
It
and
is
they
an
would-
outlot.
And they would share in the participation of the maintenance, but the city would not maintain that. The city owns the storm pipes in the street,
In the streets?
but our pipes would drain to that pond, and then their association, or whatever you're calling it, would be responsible for the ponds. And then that would drain to crosses the culvert and goes further to the east.
Yes, best I can tell, everything drains to little basins, the little one goes to the one on the east and ultimately overflows at the points east.
Correct.
Um,
That's my recollection.
Also interested in how it moves to the north and west, but it
And-
looks like
and
those
there
are
is a-
just going straight out to the street system.
Yeah, and there is a pond on the north side of the street too.
Proposed.
Proposed, yes.
And that be a city regional pond or a property owner?
Again, property owners association or whatever they call their association.
Thank you for that understanding. It's all designed well, I just couldn't make out exactly where it ends up. And no, when we get to the waivers, I've got some questions or comments, but.
Alderman Danner?
This is probably to staff, Glenn. Even to the north, how high does that land go up? And how's that water gonna go to the north?
It goes all the way to North Pole.
Oh, okay, great. Mr. Haley would probably want it to go to Michigan.
I admit, I don't have the grading plan devoted
You're
to
talking
that.
about that larger pond to the north?
Yeah,
I think the property actually falls off. It almost crests.
does it? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is kind of the focal point of this area?
Generally, all of this does drain to the north and west,
Oh,
but the building itself is being taken to the east basin and going that way. There's sort of a divide happening.
Okay, okay.
Everything's actually trying to get to the Root River, so some of it kind of goes, I think, goes a little bit to the west. So the west side of your building, I believe, does drain west. East side drains east, and you might have a little bit of parking in the front that drains north.
Yeah, I believe that's
Yeah,
correct.
there's connections
Yeah.
from the parking lot all out to the street.
And staff, are these roads already roughed in? I haven't been back there, so.
They are not.
Okay.
We just had a discussion on Tuesday night where the overall development agreement was approved pending some legal and technical capabilities. So
Okay.
based on your timing, I would expect that Mr. Biller would be moving dirt sometime this fall.
We've been asking him to do that, and he says he's reengaged C.D. Smith, I think it is, his contractor. He was just waiting for your document the other night, so I think it.
We are
you're
still
right.
waiting for the project to be actually publicly bid, but, so it's in the process.
Mr. Ogden is encouraging.
I mean, okay, because
try to be
they've got a
polite.
timeline of 2021, and we don't have anything in the ground yet.
Mr. Biller doesn't have anything to ground.
Okay.
Not we.
Okay, Mr. Biller doesn't, that's their problem, Mr.
But
Biller.
that is one of my concerns in this, is that the special use is only good for 1 year. You've got to be in-built and occupancy permit, or it expires. Does that seem reasonable to you?
From this approval,
From the passage of the resolution, I believe the language reads.
Unless extended.
Unless extended, of course. But right now, you'd be getting an approval. It gives
Yeah,
you a
I
year to
mean,
get this all done. That's
right now, if
that's
this were to
optimistic.
happen today, it would be about where our target is, okay? The goal is to start in the spring and have it ready early, mid-fall, okay? Early fourth quarter. However, we're right there. So any kind of delays either on the start side or for an approval issue or a hiccup with Biller getting his stuff there, yeah, occupancy, all that stuff has to be done in order to get the occupancy.
Should
So-
that,
Within 1 year,
should that user come to pass,
they'll be back.
they better be in a year. So, yeah.
I just want to make sure you're aware of that, because the extension is only good for a year unless you heard the approval.
Commissioner Leon?
Mayor, you may have already answered my question, but do we, as a commission, have the ability to recommend a longer period to ensure that it happens within the time that they would be permitted? Like, I don't know what that length of time is, whether it's
Well,
18 months or.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair question, given, I mean, the first building, I think that the year timeframe is reasonable. And if it turns out to be a single user, the year timeframe is reasonable. But if that doesn't come to pass and it becomes two buildings, then I think we'd need to talk about something for that second building, so we're not left with a big question mark there.
And
Well,
and maybe
given-
my question's to the city attorney. I don't know if we have the ability to recommend a longer period. If we don't, okay.
Well, let me answer the question from Mr. Ogden as well. Given what I know of the circumstances right now, we should issue this as per policy as a one-year agreement. It will help Mr. Ogden in his discussions, it'll help the city in our discussions, and at some point in the future, if they need to come back and ask for an extension for the second building, that'll be just fine, we'll deal with it then. Because we certainly usually don't want to be unreasonable, especially if there's buildings coming out of the ground.
I would
Mr.
agree with that. I wouldn't be comfortable giving the extension at this point in time. Let's let it get started and see how it rolls.
Yeah, I was on the opposite side of that statement, but yeah, okay. Mr. City Engineer.
Sometimes I forget that not everyone's intimately involved in this as I am. So I do want to, for the clarification of everyone, to let you know what the city has done. We have a gravity sewer that we are actually we had a discussion today on final acceptance of everything. And that gravity sewer flows down to a lift station that we are very close to having final completion on.
Which is down there.
It's to the south, and that will actually pump in a force main, which the force main is actually, we're again talking final completion, that pumps up to Oakwood Road. We have a water main that runs down what we are calling Hickory Street, runs all the way from Oakwood Road, all the way down to the Biller parcel. Mr. Biller will install gravity sewer and water main along Aspen Way and Birch Street for other developments. But this building could actually go online and function as is with the sewer and water. So we have that in place.
Off of Hickory.
Off of Hickory, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's understanding, yes.
So I just wanted to let you know that it's not exactly bare ground, so.
Mr. City Attorney.
Unified Development Ordinance, Section 15-9.0103, applications for special use permit, subsection F, subsection G. In any case where a special use has not been established within 1 year after the date of granting thereof, then without further action by the Plan Commission or the Common Council, the special use authorization shall be null and void. The criteria for determining establishment of a special use may be set forth by the Common Council in the approving special use resolution. In other words, when I heard occupancy permit, I didn't think that was correct. I was looking at planning staff.
So what has to be accomplished within a year without an extension?
If it's not already in the draft resolution.
Yeah, if it's not already in the draft resolution, the council could make it, they could make whatever the trigger point is.
Should provide for what establishment is, considering this might be phased.
Yeah.
So maybe it's some description of substantial development
Or
of
completion of the building?
the initial building.
We'll direct staff to develop some language on that prior to the council meeting. Commissioner Haley.
And again, for what it's worth, department, I understand the dilemma. I don't support that at this point in time. Move forward with great haste. Hopefully you'll be done in a year. If you need to come back, then we talk about who the actual user is, what the delays are, what it takes to move forward. That's the way I'd like to see it. So, for council.
Are we ready to move on with the exceptions? Exception, okay.
Those are in the site plan. You're talking about the special use. There were no conditions of any substance in the special use resolution.
So are you, well, but you want us to do the motion on the waivers first, according to your motion.
Legal secretary did it. Then it's subject to approval of the special use.
Okay, so let's do the special use first. Their motion to recommend approval of the resolution imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a special use for development of two approximately 150, well, the question is what happens if it turns to be one building?
I wasn't listening.
This may turn into one 300,000 square foot building.
Two buildings, one owner. They've got a driveway between them.
This may turn into one building of 300,000 square feet.
Correct. As I said earlier, there is a user in the market looking for 300,000 square feet, or approximately 300,000 square feet.
Add in the or.
And
Okay,
I
all right.
appreciate that, but that's not what the site plan's showing us.
I understand that.
So I'll just add the or in. So is there a motion to recommend approval of a resolution imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a special use for the development of two approximately 150,000 square foot Class A speculative industrial buildings, or one 300,000 square foot Class A speculative industrial building, and for the approval of a special use for overnight parking for vehicles exceeding 8,000 pounds manufactured gross vehicle weight upon the properties located at 3825 West Aspen Way and 3707 West Aspen Way.
So moved.
Second.
You understand the importance that putting the or clause in there will allow for capturing that user should that deal come along. And if we don't do that, that prevents us from getting a potential single user. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. On the site plan, their motion to approve a resolution approving a site plan for development of two approximately 150,000 square foot Class A speculative industrial buildings, or one approximately 300,000 square foot Class A speculative industrial building with associated parking, loading areas, a driveway connection or not a driveway connection between one or
You gotta do the waivers before you do this.
Okay.
site plan.
cancel all that. Okay. Okay, on the waivers, the first waiver is to,
We're going to work from the resolution or the staff report.
whatever you'd like. I gotta dig it out.
Yep.
Resolution then. What did I do with it? Okay. That's not it. You got the resolution.
This is one.
That's the site plan resolution.
This is on your one, right?
That's what we're on.
That's the one you're on.
The other one's special use. I'll give you special use, but I don't think that's.
I gotta find the, hold on.
What are you looking for, Mayor?
I got it.
Site number 5.
Number 5, thank you, that was what I was looking for. Okay, the first waiver is for, to make all the parking for automobiles in the front. You want to discuss that first, or everybody understands it? Okay,
Don't like it, but we can live with it.
is there a motion to waive the standard, the required standards under 15-3.0444B, .D.1.A.4 pertaining to parking?
So moved.
Second.
This requires 5 affirmative. Let's do a roll call. Mr. Eddie?
Mayor Olson?
Aye. Well, I only vote to effect.
Okay. Commissioner Hogan?
Aye.
Commissioner Burkhart?
Aye.
Commissioner Haley?
Aye.
City Engineer Morrow?
Aye.
Alderman Dendria?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Motion passes 6 ayes, no noes, no absent, no abstentions. Item B is to waive the standards pertaining to parking and building character and design. Any questions for staff?
Can you just tell me where we are?
Commissioner Leon,
Thank you.
that would be 6.
It is 6, okay. Thank you.
Questions for staff? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Eddie?
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Alderman Dendria?
Aye.
City Engineer Morrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Haley?
Aye.
Commissioner Burkhart?
Aye.
Commissioner Hogan?
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstention. Item C is pertaining to bicycle and pedestrian amenities. Any questions for staff? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Eddie? I'm sorry. Mr. Haley?
By this, we would be waiving those standards. I disagree with that. And we're going to get into this, I suspect, on several of these. The South 27th Street guidelines. If we're not going to follow them anymore, then we ought to repeal them. Every time this comes up, we keep granting exceptions and waivers. We either want this to be a beautiful business park or we don't. And many of these, I understand, they're cost savings, they keep it simple, but we're trying to create an image here as well. And I'm sure you have a lot of respect for the building you're trying to create, but why waive the standards?
Mr. City Engineer?
I would like to note that we are building, I should say, Mr. Biller is building a pathway. The idea is that we anticipate the county will actually extend the Root River Trail, and we anticipate going along Aspen Way. We are building a trail along Elm Road, and this is actually going to be the bicycle passage to get someone across the interstate. So I will say that there is some bicycle traffic that it's conceivable that in the future, ideally, someone could ride their bike to work, because it's going to be right on the trail and very convenient. I would personally hate to see this one.
Okay, Mr. Eddie?
Commissioner Hogan?
Aye.
Commissioner Burkhart?
Oh.
Commissioner Haley?
No.
City Engineer Morrow?
No.
Alderman Dendria?
No.
Commissioner Leon?
No.
Motion fails. 1 aye, 5 noes. Actually,
If I can clarify, that this was on bicycle and pedestrian
that's
amenities.
correct. Yeah.
Sidewalks provided, the iron length of the facade containing public entrance, city roof, but that entire statement, or is it just regarding providing pedestrian access to the entries and bike facilities?
Correct. Bicycle facilities and pedestrian access.
Okay.
And I agree with that action. and we'll talk about that for the next issue as well. But I do have but we do need to be flexible, but I agree with that action. Waiver for the Plan Commission for PDD for building character and design for the lower third of the public facades for higher quality materials. Before we do this, I did work with the applicant on what now you see in front of you.
This, yeah. There was a, probably. There you go.
That's the difference.
There you go. Those are the differences. And
Yeah,
I
explain,
did
explain
you
what this
get-
is, because
Did
this
you
is
get
just
the
a-
copy of
Back one.
the additional images?
Yes.
The comparison images?
Comparison.
So, what we have here currently, you can't necessarily, I'll do that. You like microphones and stuff like that.
The red one.
Okay. So, okay.
This was the original proposal.
This is the original proposal. It is painted precast, a multicolor scheme. We have texture created with reveals to give some different aspects. We certainly using color to focus and glass to focus to the entry, etc.
You will stop.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what we're proposing is a potential alternative. This right now is a painted base that runs across the building on all sides, I believe on the rear as well. It runs along the road. So what we're proposing, if you can flip to the next one, this, is to take this portion that you can see that's a little bit different grade here. And what we're proposing to do is provide a brick texture to that using a form liner product. So that would essentially create an impression, a brick impression. It would still be precast wall panel. It would be painted in a two-color scheme, so that essentially it would read as a mortar joint and a brick face. It would not just be flush painted. And that would be along the parking lot on the north elevation, across this section, and this section. This is where the first building ends, by the way. That's the second building back there. We do have, did you get the full revised elevations? That's the original. I have them on a flash drive if you want. Actually, I'm not sure if I have that on a flash drive, but I do have some additional. If you pull that.
I said I worked with them. It was me and the alderman of the district.
If you go to, there should be a file on there in the images folder. Let me get to it. That's not the one. Go to images, please, and then comparison. So this has multiple views, and it goes from one to the next. So if you can jump to the next page. So that's the original design. This is the same view with the additional, with the brick form liner. The next ones, we get a little closer in, it's a little clearer to see. The original design, and then scrolling. And that's with the brick form liner. You can see the brick texture on there.
We did this too.
No, those were there.
Oh, I'm sorry, this.
Nope, also was there. If you roll up, roll back one, it's the same. The entries are the same. It's just that
Thought we made
base
some changes there.
across there. Okay. Continuing, we've got a couple more views real quick. So again, the entryway originally coming up to it, and the next one approaching the entry is with the point line.
I didn't see the brick.
And next, got one final one at one of the secondary entrances. You can scroll down again. That's the original and the proposed alternative. If you go two more, I guess. We just put them all together here in front of the next one that shows you all four images at once. The next one would be the alternative.
The alderman and I both agreed, this is in the back of the business park, not the front, so. Okay, questions for the applicant? The city attorney.
Not for the applicant, but the staff, is the condition number 8 as drafted, where, with regard to the waiver, it has a provision that the applicant provide that the lower third of the public facades reflect higher quality materials? Is that what's being shown here? Or does the condition have to be changed?
Mr. Martinez, or? who's
Well,
talking? Mr. Eddy.
I think if Marion could actually chime in, she would. There's an audio problem on her somewhere in between. This looks like brick, and I think the effect is going to be brick-like. That's not quite a third, I don't think.
No, he's a little shy of that.
Is she being cut off? That's grim.
Well, my thought when this started was, as all of these waivers are addressed within the draft resolution as the applicant shall obtain a waiver, I was already going to suggest that on any motion to approve after all the waivers are addressed, that it be subject to changes to the resolution prepared by staff in accordance with the decisions made by the plan commission on the respective waivers. So it can be covered in that fashion.
So I think if to be more factually correct, based on the facade that you and the alderwoman have indicated was acceptable, that's about a quarter, not rather than one third. It's more like
25%.
it's about 25%.
Mary's on the phone. I can use the speaker.
Well, I think I already solved it.
Okay. No, it's not necessary, but just.
So we're changing the language to reference the presentation here tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from the lower
Well,
third
staff
to
will,
the lower
if the
one
waiver
quarter.
gets approved.
Yeah, we'll adjust it.
Okay. Is there a motion to waive the required standards under 15-3.0444B, D4A3 and 4 pertaining to building character and design?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Eddy, when you get a minute. This is item D, by the way.
Yes. Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Alderman DeAndrea,
Aye.
City Engineer Morrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Haley,
Aye.
Commissioner Burkhardt,
Aye.
Commissioner Hogan.
Motion carries, 6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstentions. The next one is pertaining to supplemental design standards. And Mr. Eddy, would you describe those for us?
The district is, PDD 39 is also subject to the South 27th Street overlay. So as a result, some of the waivers you already considered are also being repeated here. So some of these you're going to probably do the same thing you just did. Several of these changes include the parking required, the location regulated standard that you previously approved. One is for pedestrian considerations that you may or may not want to approve at this point. The third one deals with bicycle pedestrian amenities. That's probably the one you're probably not going to want to approve. That's similar to condition number 7. Condition number 13 deals with central areas and features. That's something where you would, in the overlay, you typically would require some kind of bench or seating area or something like that, which would have been appropriate in a more commercial environment rather than a straight-up industrial spec space. Building materials and colors, similar to condition number 8, which means you'll probably want to adjust that for the lower 1/4. With regard to condition number 15, again, dealing with building facades, those are more specific to the 27th Street overlay. 16th is, applies to basic windows, and again, number 17 is, again, related to the building facade, so that's another one that you're probably going to have to make consistent with the previous approval for the condition of approval number 8. And then the final one deals with the building design. Some of these are related to things like making sure it looks like a two-story building, and so on and so forth, in the 27th Street overlay. So you're going to want to adjust a couple of these, considering what you just did. And let me see if I'm missing anything. Protrusions, recesses is the one covering building design. Minimum 20% of all the combined linear roof
Well,
eaves and
let's-
parapet lines and all that sort of stuff.
Heath,
It's
we got-
stuff that's related to commercial design rather than an industrial building.
I'm looking at the motion sheet, then I'm looking at the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
This is not in here.
Yeah, and we've got a little bit of a conflict here,
Okay.
No, it's a question.
or a question.
Is E a general introduction to the South 27th Street design overlay waivers individually set forth below that? Or is E separate and it's not, should it be addressed in the resolution?
All right, now I'm lost. I don't know where you're referring to E.
On page 2 of
Page
the
2 of the
motion sheet.
motions.
Okay. Oh, you're looking at the agenda. Okay. See, you got me covering.
Twisted too.
On the motion packet.
No, because staff gets it from the legal secretary.
Yeah.
Here, we-
Hang on. I've got like 15 million sheets in here. Hang on. G. Yeah, I am.
So this does read like these are the sum of this.
Supplemental design, intended for that. Yeah, there's something there, but it's similar, but it doesn't make sense.
Oh, right here.
It was on the agenda too.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Sorry, folks. Welcome to sausage being made.
Hang on, hang on.
You're gonna get your share in a little bit.
Is intended the applicable. Somehow they got missed in the resolution. That's why I missed it when I was covering, because I was referring to the resolution rather than the sheets.
Like an introduction, is it that's going to happen? Or is it separate way?
They're their own thing. Yeah, I don't think they're individual things that are all part of that.
I think it's just an introduction. That's what I think, because,
Mary has the answer. Sorry.
What is it?
Hold on, I will put you in speaker.
Hold on.
Okay,
Can everyone hear me okay?
yes, go.
Okay. So there's the reason why the agenda is set up this way. The PDD specifically cites the South 27th Street overlay as being incorporated into the design standards for the PDD. However, the boundary of the overlay also includes the entirety of the PDD. So they have to be addressed separately. The PDD has the standard cited as an addition to the design supplement, but then the overlay itself is still in effect on this property apart from it being in the PDD. It's an overlay. So both of them have to be addressed. So you could if the city attorney concurs, you could potentially move to waive all of the 27th Street items as a batch. I did group them with the thought process that you might want to do some of them as a group. But the agenda has to reflect that duplication. Sorry, everyone.
So if you want to cover each of those South 27th Street overlay waivers, you should do them separately rather than all at once. That motion
Thank you,
isn't
Eric.
really essential for the D7, that 1E on the motion sheet isn't really necessary, because unless you're going to do everything in a batch motion, that's not useful. And keeping in mind, some of these standards are sort of repeated. So some of the things one of the things you chose to not waive, you would have to cover it separately anyway.
We could do it as a batch, accepting B, C, and D. Commissioner Leon?
I'm sorry, you're referring to B, C, and D. I think we covered C already. I'm having a hard time following because I don't have the same document. I've got the numbers on here, so
I'm
I
sorry.
understand the ones we want to say no to that are basically to do with bicycle and pedestrian amenities. If you can give me the numbers on those, that would help me follow along a little better.
Yep. Let me do that for you.
I think I've got 12 as one of them. 12, 8, and then maybe one other.
The cross-reference is the agenda itself with the letters that they're using.
The agenda sheet.
Okay, thank you.
10, 11, and 12. So the motion would be to waive the standards of the South 27th Street Overlay District, section 15-3.0352A through, I don't know how to do that. Waive the standards for the 27th Street Overlay District outlined in the resolution, the draft resolution, paragraphs 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, and 18.
So let me get that straight. Which ones are those?
We're doing 9,
Okay.
9 through 18, but deleting 10, 11, and 12. Is that better?
No, you deny the,
And deny 10, 11, and 12.
We don't, I'm not sure what your,
The resolution sheet?
I don't think we
You don't have
have the
that?
resolution sheet.
it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm going through, I don't see a number
I'll give you-
18 on the agenda, I mean, okay, that's what I'm trying.
There you go.
That's what I'm trying to grasp.
Okay, to do that again, the motion would be to approve on the draft resolution 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And to deny 10, 11, and 12. Commissioner Leon?
And we can do approve and deny in one vote? Or should we handle those separately?
Okay, no, we'll do the approve.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve 9, 13, 14, 15, hold on, fat fingers, 16, 17, and 18?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Clear? Commissioner Haley?
Well, just
Microphone.
hold off a second. We're just reading through them real quick, please.
While they're reading, Commissioner Haley, turn your microphone. Microphone,
One of
sir.
the concerns that I have.
Your microphone.
And this is when we talk about the
Kevin,
27th.
microphone.
I'm sorry. The bicycle pedestrian considerations, 10, 11, and 12. The 27th Street guidelines also suggest that when we grant waivers, that there's some things we can get back, some enhancements on the site otherwise. In this case, given the waivers that we're issuing, I would like to request some additional crosswalk markings and sidewalks, and I can be specific about that. But your site plan is good in many ways, but I think there's a couple critical for safety and internal circulation that would make a difference. And I can go through those, but that would be.
Please.
Okay.
Kevin. Will you turn your seat? Big button in the middle.
Right here, striped sidewalk, crosswalk added, just as you have elsewhere there. There's the walk, you're trying to encourage all the people to get to the north side, use this sidewalk. There should be crosswalk striping there and here. You have curb ramps included, it's a matter of adding the paint at that
One at the
point.
upper left isn't our property.
We agree with that, but those are not on our property.
That's Spillers.
Those
Shows
are
that
on the
they're-
other side of the street.
Oh, that's Biller property.
No, it's a street, if I'm understanding this correctly. Is that a public street right away there?
That
Are you
is-
trying to go from
That-
I'm
west,
talking
east to
north-
west there? Or
North to south.
But that's different property.
The other side of this, the north side of the street is Biller's site. That's not the HSA site.
Okay, I'm looking right here. There's a property line, there's the curb cuts of the street.
That's not our property line.
So,
That's across the street. Our property line is to the east side of Birch and the south side of.
Hey, Kevin, may I
So
help you
nobody's
out?
gonna strike those.
May I help
No,
you out?
I'm not
Public
saying they
safety.
won't. I'm just saying those walks, those drives, et cetera, are not part of our scope.
So,
I mean, I would
It's
hope
fine.
they would be.
You're putting them in elsewhere across the street. You seem to be missing. Then I guess the other suggestion,
may I help?
Hold on.
May I help you? So, if I recall, I think the 10-foot path is planned to be on the north side of the street.
Yes.
So what I do think is appropriate to serve this site, you need to look at at least possibly, it sounds like 2 crosswalks so that your site can connect to the other site,
And we're showing that. We're showing crosswalks.
crossing the Aspen.
Yes.
right here between the two buildings, they're showing one.
There's a
That's all I'm
crosswalk
asking is
here.
to add another one
And
here.
a crosswalk here.
So
Providing pedestrian access to the entry.
let's
I-
just talk about,
And here, that's right. also.
I would suggest that at the upper left-hand corner, it would be appropriate because that's conceivably where, once the path is developed by the county, that's where people would be coming in and they would be entering your site.
So it sounds like we're all in violent agreement.
Excellent.
Just got to get the right people to do it.
That's correct. Okay, so that one I think is necessary. The sidewalks along the building here and here have been interrupted. I think they should be continuous. So it comes into a point about here, then you've got a retaining wall for this basin. I'd like to see these sidewalks all connected. You've got doors there, you've got people that are gonna be going from the loading dock up along the edge here, they'll be coming along here. It just makes common sense to extend, and that's, I guess, right in here, there's a missing piece of walk.
The walks being provided, if I may, are for egress purposes. Those are not entrances of any sort and would not be used by a pedestrian or a passerby or anything. The entrance to the building is here, okay? At the corners with secondary entrances provided here. And what we're providing is a pedestrian way from the path to get to those areas. The other areas are essentially utilitarian exit ways that can be maintained for safety.
Emergency exits and such, and I understand that. I've got a lot of experience in design, and those paths will get worn in there. It's very simple to extend that. People are going to want to walk along this side of the building, whether it's on their lunch breaks or going out for that smoke, whatever it is. When you've got sidewalks there and sidewalks there, if you don't put it in there, it will be a beaten path in the grass. Same thing over here. And I believe, and I don't know the exact purpose of these doors, but you have doors on opposite buildings.
Yes.
I would think that you'd want to at least stripe a couple of these there.
And
You've got
again, those-
opposing doors that at some point in time, people will be walking there.
I disagree.
Well, I do too. It's pedestrian safety that I'm concerned with.
No,
And the
that-
27th Street standards call for enhanced pedestrian and bicycle amenities, and that should involve the ability to negotiate the whole site without having to walk on the grass. Oversimplify it. The standards call for
No, I understand
sidewalks
what you're
along
saying.
the
I'm
entire
just-
facade. I guess what I'm saying is, that's the one we shouldn't be waiving. Get everything else you need, put the walks in, crosswalks and sidewalks where they're needed. Make it safe for everybody. You got truck traffic out there.
Well, the truck traffic is contained to the rear of the site and could be utilizing this. These, again, these little paths are for egress purposes and for fire access purposes. There is no envisioned need for pedestrian access between the buildings through locked egress doors.
You've got doorways, you've got sidewalks from the door out to the curb, people will walk there. Again, right, it's a design thing. What we're trying to do is make this comfortable for people.
Well, I understand
Not
that,
everybody
but-
drives in and out. Once the employees are there, they will go. Some will bicycle. People will
Sure,
walk on
and
their
we've
lunch
got,
breaks.
we've got no problem providing bicycle amenities. We understand that concern. But providing pedestrian access to doors that are fire department access and/or egress doors, they won't get used the way you're talking about it. You're talking about them as though all these doors are open and employees can come and go as they please through them and just go out this door and come back in another door. It just doesn't work that way.
I'm not talking about the building and the architecture and how the circulation patterns within it work. I'm being specific to the site plan.
Sure.
What we're trying to do is make the building pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and you do that by connecting things, the things people want to get to. If there was a security reason for not having these, that's one thing. But people are going to be out there. If you build a sidewalk, they're going to walk on it. And if it stops and there's a 100-foot gap to another one they know is there, they're just going to walk right on through. We're asking for a little bit of an upper here, since we're willing to do away with the whole brick belt line on the bottom. It's a little bit of give and take. And it's not so much about aesthetics, it's about the functioning and the safety of a bicycle and pedestrian area. That's all I'm asking for.
Mr. City Engineer.
I think I understand. So it, basically, the middle are really not meant to be for people to enter and exit.
No.
It's really just for emergency access only. I do agree around the perimeter of the building. I think one of the biggest, I want to say, crimes of our existing business park and industrial park, you go out there at lunchtime, there's people walking everywhere in the street because there's no sidewalks. So I do think wherever we can encourage sidewalks around the perimeter of your site, I think is most appropriate too. So.
And if I might, the ones between the two buildings, all I'm looking for there is paint to connect them. You've
No, I
got traffic
understand.
going through there. If somebody in an emergency steps out that door, runs for daylight, and you've got a truck coming through, if you put stripes on the ground, it puts the onus of safety on the driver.
I do understand what you're asking for there, and I can understand that from that point of view. I guess what I struggle with is that the park is providing an enhanced walking experience in this, I believe it's a 10-foot walk, correct? On the other side of the road, walk/bike, whatever it is, which I believe is intended to be for this use. It seems like we're creating more redundancy rather than allowing that space to be landscaped and beautified rather than putting sidewalks in. Our preference would be to keep as much of this that is not required for the function of the building to be green, and provide it as a green amenity as opposed to a sidewalk that honestly I feel is either not going to be used or is redundant of a nicer sidewalk that is intended to be connective to other things as opposed to just a loop around the building.
How does the truck driver who's pulled in, parked there, and is being unloaded, and he wants to take a walk out front and get to that sidewalk, how does he get there?
Well,
He
he's
walks
going to
through the
walk,
parking lot, or he walks through the building?
he's going to walk through the truck court, yes.
My guess is that your truck drivers aren't going to be encouraged to come walking through the building.
No, they're not.
Give them a sidewalk, 5-foot concrete. I mean, the other thing is I wasn't gonna get into all this, but your snow storage areas, basically what you're doing is you're ringing your parking lot with a band of snow mounds, right on top of the landscaping. So you will have issues with plant death, the salt burn that you get from that, because almost the entire site, you're showing all of your snow removal going right in the beds along the walks, along the parking lot. Those piles tend to get in people's way when they're trying to walk in the winter. Having clearly defined walkways makes things safe and beautiful. I'll just drop it at that.
Mr. City Engineer.
So, if I understand Mr. Haley's concern, and if I could reiterate what you just said, so, yes, there is a 10-foot pathway, but the 10-foot pathway is not on all three sides of your building. It's only on the Aspen Way. So I guess I'd like to see some sidewalks along Birch and Hickory to be able to get the pedestrians up and around the building. I guess that's, would be and then we've talked about the crosswalks that would get them across Aspen Way, but I wouldn't see a redundant sidewalk.
And my point, if I might, is you're already putting them in.
It stops there.
You gotta walk from there to there, and you gotta walk there. To add that piece rather than
Well,
putting in a
you
whole
wouldn't,
other walk
'cause he's got
here,
trees here.
seems simple.
Well, the additional walk on the other side will still be there, actually.
Keep it
That's
right away.
part of builder's requirement as far as the connectivity throughout the park. Right? I mean, it's not like by putting it adjacent to our building, that would be eliminated. And again, that's not our responsibility, so I wouldn't want it to be eliminated anyway. I mean, I think
We just
that's
have to disagree on it. Public safety is an important thing.
I don't disagree, sir.
And there's room in the right of way.
Is there a sidewalk, is it developed?
Use your microphone and lean up.
Is the developer putting a sidewalk next to the road?
The answer is no. And not on Birch.
Or city staff, you guys looked at this thoroughly.
My understanding is there is a sidewalk being provided across here and across
No, it's
here.
not here.
On the north side of the road, continuing north, across the north side of the street here, and on the west side of the street here.
But what's this?
That is a public sidewalk, I believe, within the public right of way.
Can you describe to me on your drawing, on the east side of the building, it's difficult to see and you don't call it out. You got a 42-inch metal guardrail next to walkway. You've got a walkway that appears to hug the, it appears to be set off the building 3 or 4 feet.
Here,
Then it runs up against the building. It appears.
If I might, I think that was to go between the walk and the detention basin.
There's a sidewalk out near the, and we're just killing this sidewalk thing. We gotta move on, 'cause, But-
Hickory Street does have a sidewalk.
Hickory has a sidewalk. But on your thing, you exit next to the drive-in door, you go east, there's a 6-foot-high retaining wall and a sidewalk. There's some bushes up against the building. You walk on that sidewalk, you get halfway up the building, there's a man door.
yes,
See the man door there?
here,
Yep.
yes.
Well, on my drawing,
Going north from that is a lawn area that is not intended as a sidewalk.
okay, but it looks on this drawing like a sidewalk. Right up against the building with bushes to the east.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And then there's a bump in on the building that's got bushes in it. On our drawing, that's got bushes in it,
Yes.
and what appears to be a sidewalk between the two rows of bushes.
This is not intended as a sidewalk, this is intended as a grass strip.
Yeah, okay, well, here it looks like a sidewalk, so, okay.
Don't kid it, because there is a sidewalk here.
If the sidewalk comes
So,
down
okay,
here,
so-
it comes down.
Yeah, but you can't, because this is a pond here.
Okay, you did it, you designed it this way. What was the purpose of that sidewalk, that partial sidewalk then?
Of this sidewalk,
Yeah.
Get to the man
to
door.
provide a safe and maintainable access for fire egress.
Okay.
So, employees can be able to walk up and get to that. So I'm okay with
Yeah, but they can't.
The south side of the building's burning.
to walk out this way.
Yeah, you gotta walk in the driveway.
Okay.
So here's the point. Here's the point, we'll move on, all right? All right, here's the point, we'll move on. The point that Commissioner Haley's making is, we need to do something on the east and west side of the buildings, because the guys who work on the south side of the buildings don't have a safe way to get to a sidewalk. All right? The city's giving you lots of waivers that are worth, we feel, a lot of money. So take some of that money that we feel that we're giving you back, and get the guys from the south side a safe way to get to sidewalk. Is that fair, Kevin? So work with staff to make that happen.
We will work with staff. Thank you.
So there is a motion on the floor to give the developer some money back. Making your point for you, Kevin? All those in favor of that motion? Let's do a roll call, please, Mr. Eddy. This is approval on that list of, what is it?
The approval on resolution conditions, the approval on resolution for waivers for the conditions that are specified in the resolution. Conditions number 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Approval of those.
Correct.
Approval of the waivers.
With,
Direction to staff to accommodate those changes as specifically discussed and provided on the record at this meeting.
Do I
Okay.
need to be amenable to that? Because I am. I made the motion, that's why I'm asking.
sure, and
Yes.
whoever made the second
And
needs
if
to.
I made the second, I'll agree
Yes.
with that.
All right.
Yes,
Mr.
you
Eddy.
did. Okay. Commissioner Hogan?
And what was the motion for approval?
Approval of waivers to,
9 through 18.
except for 10, 11, 12.
Aye.
Commissioner Burkhardt?
Aye.
Commissioner Haley?
Aye.
City Engineer Morrow?
Hi.
Alderman Dandria?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Motion carries 6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstentions. Then is there a motion to deny 10, 11, and 12?
So moved.
Second.
Mr.
Reason,
For the reasons discussed in the rather long discussions.
For number 8, same as number 8, right?
8 is no, that, we're gonna delete 8.
I'm sorry, 7. 7 is the one we said no. No, sorry.
Yes.
7 is, I think, the one we denied.
We're gonna delete 8, not deny it.
So
Because
tonight,
8 was an introduction, correct?
Or we were going to modify it so that reflects a higher quality of materials, but doesn't specify the lower third or brick.
What you're referring to is number 8. I'm referring to as condition of approval, number 8 in the resolution for the site plan. So the site plan, condition number 8 deals with building character and design, and that's the building facade. That's the one that's repeated in condition of approval number 14 and also in condition of approval number 17, which you did approve.
So it's a
So,
duplicate.
huh?
It's a duplicate.
Yes. So, because one is referencing the PDD 39, which specifically calls out these standards, and then these are repeated because they're in 27th Street overlay. So you have to do them separately, even if you're doing them twice.
Okay, so we need to approve 8.
You already did.
Okay,
You already did approve condition of approval number 8 in the resolution. Now you're voting to deny waivers for conditions of approval 10, 11, and 12 in the resolution.
The reason would be to match the previous issues.
Right, with, when you denied the waiver for number 7, condition of approval number
Okay,
7.
so we're denying 10, 11, and 12 to match the previous actions of the commission.
Right,
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Eddy, there was a motion. Who made the motion?
Petra.
Okay, Leon made the motion, Haley made the second.
Okay.
Mr. Eddy.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Alderman Dan.
Sorry, we're denying, so it's an aye, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, his motion is denied, yes. Alderman Dandria.
Aye.
City Engineer Morrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Haley.
Aye.
Commissioner Burkhart.
Aye.
Commissioner Hogan.
6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstentions. The motion to deny carries. Let's see. That concludes the actions on this matter. Now we need to do the site plan, that's correct. Yep. Is there a motion to approve a resolution approving a site plan development for either 2 approximately 150 square foot Class A speculative industrial buildings or 1 approximately 300,000 square foot industrial spec building with associated parking, loading areas, a driveway, potentially a driveway connection between the 2 buildings or no connection for the 1 building, sidewalks, crosswalks, and stormwater detention ponds at 3825 West Aspen Way and 3707 West Aspen Way. Mr. City Attorney.
And to include such changes to the provisions of the draft as were discussed and related to the actions by the commission on the waivers of subject matters on this agenda.
There's such a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion? Commissioner Haley.
Just to mention at this point, to the best of my review in the documents, I'm not seeing an irrigation plan. I'm not seeing an irrigation plan that is required with the landscaping, that be done or accommodated in some way. And I'm going to suggest not only is it required, but it's very important when you're dumping all your road salt right in the ditch where the plants are.
So noted. Mr. Eddy? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ogden, get the order.
Big pardon, sir?
Get the order.
Get to work.
Get the order. You should call me and say, Steve, we got it, baby.
ABC, always be closing.
That's right. There's a few salesmen sitting up here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Marion. See ya.
Should I leave this here or move this back over there?
That's fine.
I was gonna say, you might have more use for it.
Just warmed it up for him.
The sausage is easy as making veal.
Oh, kidding. Okay, we move on to item D1. There is no public hearing on this matter. It's a request for 27th Street waivers on, and a site plan. Is it? No, special use. What is it? Whatever it is. For Kids Connection, a child care and daycare center on Rawson Avenue. Mr. Martinez, is this you?
Yes. Okay, so this is a site plan for a new child daycare facility. So this use is a permitted use in the B4 zoning district, so it's just a site plan, we don't need special use. So the general location is at Rawson Avenue and the Riverwood Boulevard, close to South 27th Street. So in the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, this area is designated as mixed use, but site plans do not need to be consistent with the future map for the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. Okay, so the project consists of the main building that is approximately 10,000 square feet with a playground, the parking for 45 spaces, and 2 driveway connection to Rawson Avenue. So the project is in general compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance with the 2 exceptions. The South 27th Street design standards, and that the proposed parking of 45 spaces does not comply with the minimum requirement of 52 spaces based on the enrollment capacity, that is 156 children. So for the South 27th Street design standards, the applicant is requesting 7 waivers in 3 different areas. So for site design, the overlay require pedestrian amenities such as benches, trash bins, and bicycle parking, for example. So the applicant is requesting to waive that requirement. Okay. So the other requested waiver is the sidewalk connection that is required to connect the building entrance with the any existing public sidewalk. In this case, will be along Rawson Avenue, as you can see, and Riverwood Boulevard. The applicant is also requesting waivers for the parking landscape and also for the parking island requirements. So the proposed parking island are too small for the requirement of the South 27th Street overlay. Also, there are 3 waivers about the architecture. The overlay requires buildings to be multi-story, mixed use, when they are in close to a strict intersection. And also, the overlay requires a corner entrance for buildings located in a strict intersection or a corner. So staff, in this case of the corner entrance, we find that the request of the applicant for this waiver is practical because a corner entrance in this location will not be practical because the applicant doesn't own that strip that is abutting Riverwood Boulevard. So the corner entrance will not be practical. And the other waiver is the dumpster. So the overlay requires that the dumpster shall be located behind the building. So the dumpster is located on the side yard, but is enclosed by concrete walls, but the gate will be visible from Rawson. Okay. And for the recommendation, so staff is recommending to table the site plan if the plan commission denies the waivers. And for the waivers, for the first 2 waivers that will be on the agenda, the A and B, that is the site amenities or site furnishings, and the pedestrian considerations, staff is recommending the conditions 5 and 6. So condition number 5 is that the plan commission will approve the parking reduction provided that the applicant revise the site plan to provide bicycle parking to compensate for the 7 missing vehicle parking. That's for number 5. And for number 6, that is waiver B on the agenda, the staff is recommending a sidewalk connection to the public sidewalk because we can see here. So this building has a sidewalk connection. This other building here has a sidewalk connection. Where are you pointing? Oh, sorry. This one have a sidewalk connection to the public sidewalk. This one and this multifamily development has also a connection. So to be compatible and consistent with the standards of the South 27th Street to promote a walkable environment, so we are recommending that the applicant provide the sidewalk connection to the public sidewalk. And also the parking reduction will be compensated by the bicycle parking. For the other waivers, we don't have any major concerns.
Applicants here?
Thank you. Steve Wagner, architect, Anderson Ashton, New Berlin.
Tina Krause, owner of His Connection Childcare.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm here representing the company who worked with the Krause family. They have 6 properties that they currently manage in southeastern Wisconsin. This would be a 7th that they'd be looking to build. We successfully completed in 2019 a similar, if not identical, building in McGuanago. We got photographs of the final project. So what you'll find, I think, when we talk about the overlay district in its guidelines, I'd like to have the owner and operator address 2 major and key items when it comes to childcare, is safety and security. So I think that's kind of a key common theme that you'll see. For instance, when we talk about a requirement or a guideline for a 2-story building, daycares don't normally function well with a 2-story component. They also don't function well in a multi-tenant building capacity as well. So the only other thing I'd like to add is the metric or the mathematics that were done to calculate the parking. With a number of licensed children at 156, that's a multiplier of 0.3, which gets us to 47, I believe, parking stalls. And then there are 6, you'll see on the site plan, there are 6 queuing areas. So what's really important for the operation and safety of the pickup drop-off exercise for this building is, if you can jump to, Regular, if you could jump to the site plan, the architectural site plan. Yep, yeah, so yep, there we go. You'll see the pickup and drop-off, our longest length of paving is along the front of the building. You also see that the efficiencies of the parking are that we've held the main long direction along the front of the building and the parking directly adjacent to the main entry. And then you'll see the paving as you move toward the top of the page toward the dumpster enclosure. That's an efficient a double loaded parking and drive in that location for the majority would be for staff and any overflow. So I think we're more in keeping with, we may be at a deficit of possibly 2 parking stalls. So I would like just to make sure that we have that calculation readdressed because as a request by the applicant. The applicant's also here to address that this same licensure is applied to the McGuanago project with 45 parking stalls as well. And maybe you can address Tina to the board, to the commission about the how often that
Sure.
parking area gets used.
Well,
Yeah.
before we do that, let's talk about some other things first
Sure.
before we worry about some minutia that may not be all that important. First of all, I'm surprised that we don't see the alderman for the district here. Been pretty important references by her to developments all over the city, but here, this one's right in her district, and we don't see her. Kind of amazed at that. Especially when there's natural resources involved. Anyway, okay. Have you had conversations with the neighbors nearby, specifically in the condominium association?
No.
Any attempt to buy the parcel right next door, which would make this a contiguous parcel and accessible to Riverwood Drive,
The property line,
which is right here?
yep, that's there. So there is a remnant chunk that's left, yeah. Which I believe you don't own, Tina, right?
No, we do not.
Correct.
So no efforts to
No.
purchase that from the condominium association? That would give you access to a less traveled street?
Potentially, the grade differential is pretty severe.
Regular, there's a lot of natural resources back here. Any,
Yes, they have a natural resource protection plan, but you can see here, that will be just the northwest corner. So they're not impacting that area.
and we're going to handle stormwater
Um,
in this pond?
Yes, they have a pond. I mean, will be to the west of the parking lot. It's not depicted here, but I can show the drainage line.
Yeah, if you have,
Yeah.
yeah, if you could, that would be helpful. It also helps describe that the LSR for this property is recorded, or is required to be 30%, and we're at 66%.
By the way, it's important to note, I was one of the guys that wrote the 27th Street standards.
Mhm.
So when I look at the architecture, and without seeming like I'm being hypercritical of your building, when the roof is bigger than the building itself, and we have a 27th Street design guidelines that say we want the appearance of a two-story building, it's a two-story building appearance, not a two-story roof appearance.
Yeah, it's an occupiable, the intent was more of a residential look to it because the two-story component could be construed as being an occupiable upper level.
But we're looking for the appearance of a
dormers.
two-story building, not a two-story roof. So I want you to take that to heart. This
Yeah.
does not in any way look like a two-story building that we would accept on 27th Street or the 27th Street guidelines. If you want to look at a single-story building that gives the appearance of a two-story building, look at the dental clinic on 27th Street. That's a single-story building that looks like a two-story building.
Yep, there is an aesthetic that this property, they're looking to so that they can carry over the same architecture from building to building so that they carry the same aesthetic.
I understand. You're asking for a waiver.
Yes, correct.
What is the value of this building?
Do we have a number?
Overall, it's 1.7.
On how many acres?
Wait.
2?
All right. Anybody else? Commissioner Leon.
So, I'm going to speak from firsthand experience. As a parent of young children, one, the last time they went to daycare was within the last year. And I'm going to speak specifically to parking. I think parking is very important, especially at daycares. Because, and we've got some pictures here. I don't know, do we have these to show on the screen? I don't think so, no. So when you have a lack of stalls, and I'm at this point a pretty hard no, and would have to be convinced to reduce the number of stalls. What you have near the entrance are parents who disregard trying to find a stall to park into at pickup, peak pickup, and drop-off times. So they wind up blocking in other parents. First-hand experience creates tension between your customers at the daycare. See it at similar places now where I still have kids where kids' activities, when we don't have enough stalls and a family just decides, well, I'm just going to be a minute So I'll let my child in or out because they can't find enough stalls to park in. So I think that it causes problems when you don't have stalls. And not as a precedent, but there was a separate application that came before this commission where we discussed drop-off and having enough parking spaces for a wrestling academy, right? So I think parking is very important, and I think to have the number of stalls reduced, or to use a calculation that allows it to be lower, would cause problems unnecessarily. And then I believe there was some talk about having the walkway connection, a sidewalk to offset that. I don't think that applies here. If you can go back to the photo, or to the type of facility that you're operating. Most people coming in and out of there are driving, right? It's on Rawson Avenue. There's not going to be very many parents walking down that sidewalk to take their kids to a daycare. They're going to drive in and they're going to drive out. Even if you had some activities that were designed around taking kids out and doing things, Rawson Avenue isn't a good place to do that. So I think the parking stalls and having whatever the requirement is, it sounds like it's 52 stalls, but
Yeah.
there might be a different calculation. I think it should not be lowered on that. So the other waivers, I don't have a ton of issues with, but I do have an issue with reducing the number of stalls for a daycare for the reasons I listed.
Just a correction for the record, so the required parking will be 47 space, so it will be missing 2 spaces.
Okay.
Not 7, yeah.
And 2 spaces can make the difference. I mean, I've seen it at daycares where you get a tensious situation between parents because somebody's blocking somebody in. I think by reducing any number, that just is inviting that kind of issue at a place like this. So I would.
Could you turn to the site plan? Maybe we can help.
Sure.
Commissioner Leon. We took that into account when we designed the front pickup drop-off approach. The queuing along the street, the 6 queuing along the street, which is the hashed area that's on the south side of the drive aisle, is actually not within the 24-foot two-way drive aisle. So you've got an additional 6 queuing lane spaces there as well, which is required also by the ordinance.
So then you have more than you need.
No, because it will be the ratio that it will be 47 spaces plus the 6 queuing spaces or stacking spaces. Yeah.
When did we get this?
From the parking table.
No, when did we get these?
The application?
Yeah.
Have that.
Yeah.
September 4th, yeah.
Commissioner Haley.
Okay, generally supportive of the use, but I've got a lot of questions about the site plan, so let's try and knock through them. In many of your responses to the standards, you stress safety, and you said that safety and security is important. We get that. As a site plan designer, I'm going to have to disagree with you on some of what you're proposing here. The idea of putting parking across the front of the building, now this isn't a retail store, this is kids coming and going. Putting parking along the front of the building makes no sense when you then put a queuing lane where you'll have 6 to 10 vehicles jammed in and waiting. Safety. You should be designing a drop-off where they can come in the driveway, go right to the front door, drop off, and then go and park. What you're creating here is a situation for tragedy. Parking in front of the buildings. You say you don't want to put landscape trees in there because you're trying to keep this open and visible. No, all they're going to see is cars. The drop-off should be at the building. The parking should be out at the street or around the sides. That's the right way to do it. Get kids in, dropped off, and safe away from cars. You've got a situation, and I understand what you're saying. You still have the full 24-foot parking lane. But you've got a row of cars queued up along the backside of the curb, and you've got all these people pulling in and backing out. And the people that are sitting in the queued cars aren't waiting for their children to wait and while they loop the parking lot and come back up. They're walking right straight across that. You've got no designated sidewalks. It's a safety hazard. And there's no reason you can't be putting the required trees in there. These trees get a trunk. They're not going to obstruct any views. Your biggest problem here is children and automobiles. And you're not playing that mix right. Okay?
I'd like maybe, if we,
Let him,
Let me go all at once, and then you can try to answer this stuff. There are some other simple things. The gate that goes into the playground area, there's a notation on the plans that says 9-inch PVC standpipe. To me, a standpipe is a water thing, you know, that a faucet for fire or whatever. It's right in front of the gate to the playground. How many kids are going to walk into that? I look at your lighting plan, which usually I don't care much about. It complies with the standards for the lighting, but the whole east edge and north end of the playground area has got almost no light on it. Now, agreed, you're 6 to 6 or whatever that is. In winter, it's dark at 4 o'clock. So that playground has very minimal lighting on it. If you're really concerned about safety, these are the things you should be focusing on. How do you get the kids in and out quickly? How do you move them around the site? Marked sidewalks, crosswalks are very essential to safety. You don't know what's going on. You got the condos to the north. Grandma and grandpa may have the kids for the day come in. The people be walking. It's not all about cars. I understand in this day and age, we tend to drive our kids everywhere. But the reality is, it needs to be safe. And parents can't control safety when there's cars coming and going, people backing up, reverse cameras and all that business. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm a site designer for a long time, and this is not what you would do. You would do a drop-off to get the kids to the door without ever crossing the parking lot as quick as you can. Then encourage the cars to either leave or go to the side lot. That's where your queuing space should be. And then those that feel they need to go in for the 15 minutes or whatever, then they park there. And then, yes, you do provide marked sidewalks that go from the parking out of the street, the queuing area, to the sidewalk there. Simple common sense things. It's kids we're dealing with. They don't have the intelligence to navigate automobiles and all that stuff, so we have to do that for them. You have to put the cars where they belong, and that's not where the kids are. This front yard, this front parking lot, is a mess and a safety issue. Again, if it was a retail store, that would be different. Everybody wants to pull up to the front end. You got kids that are anxious to get into the car or into the building, back and forth. Make it safe. Make it safe. Put the trees in there, give it shade. There's just no reason to try and leave that whole area devoid and then pave it up in asphalt. So there's several of your requests that I can't support on the waivers.
Mr. City Engineer.
So I don't know if you're paying attention to the applicant ahead of you, but they have a site that's really tucked away out of nowhere. It was over $1 million an acre of assessed value. And it sounds like you're going to be less than $1 million per acre of construction value. Not saying your building looks bad, but I do agree with some of the comments we heard earlier that it's a nice facility, but maybe in the wrong place for what we're trying to do up front in center as you, basically the entrance coming into the city. So I know that there's some really cool discussions of what could happen on the corner of 27th and Rawson. I'm looking forward to that developing. A little bit further to the west of there, there's some buildings that appear to be two-story and that sort of thing, and I think this could fit in with that whole section if it were designed properly. Right now, it looks like a house, and I think that's the intent. And then maybe what your other sites look like wherever else they are, but for being front and center, this may not be the best spot for your location. For the record, I do like the look of this a little bit better than the child care we just approved on, on Drexel. But I do think for being right there as you come in. Yeah, right in front of the Target and Pick and Save, yeah, so. So those are my thoughts on it. But I agree that if you're really going to put kids here, the traffic pattern really probably needs to drop kids off in the back and keep them out of harm's way as opposed to being right there on Rawson.
Yeah, from a safety standpoint, so this is our sixth center that we'll have built. All of our parking is set up the way that it's presented here. We don't have a queuing section. In childcare, you don't drop your kid off and then go park your car. You have to park your car and get out of your car and bring your child in. There's not somebody waiting at the door. The buildings are all security coded, so parents get in to a secured entrance via their code. So we have a center currently in the Franklin Industrial Park off of 51st and Ryan. It's called Discovery Days. So our centers are Discovery Days on Kids Connection. Every center is set up the same way. We've never had an issue with safety as far as anybody being hurt or anything of the sort. To be honest, it works really well. Having the front middle entrance like that makes it convenient that when you do come in the building, it's centrally located. You can get to either side of the building in the same amount of time. There's just never been an issue as far as parking and overflow that we've dealt with, because in childcare your drop-off and pickup times vary. All parents aren't dropping off and picking up at the same time. We do have hours that are more busy than others, 6 to 9 in the morning, 3 to 6 in the afternoon. But again, those parents are coming in at all different times. We've been over at the Franklin location since 2016. That was a building that we purchased, already was a child care center, but we did take it over. We didn't make any changes to parking or anything like that. It's ran effectively. We were licensed for 110 children at that location. We've never been short of parking. The new McWanago facility, licensed for 150 children. Again, we've been there for over a year, have never run into an issue with parking. So I understand the concerns as far as, what that might look like, but I can tell you from experience that there's never been, I've been, since 2000, we built our first center in Muskego, built the exact same way, just a smaller version, half the size, but also half the parking, and never had an issue with safety, and never had an issue with it being approved at a city level as far as any of our buildings were concerned. So I don't necessarily agree that that's an issue as far as safety, just because from experience I can tell you that's not been the case for us. I feel very comfortable and confident that it's a very secure and safe location. I would never want to build a building that wasn't. We do this because we love children and it's our passion, so we work hard to make sure that everybody's safe. As far as the aesthetics of the building, I think Steve touched on the fact that we are looking to keep our branding similar to what we've been doing. It's kind of part of the whole branding image that we're going for. It does have somewhat of a home feel. We find that clients, it's what they prefer. It's what's comfortable for people. When I look at the KinderCare location that was approved and built on 27th Street, that appears to not be a two-story building either, unless I misunderstood, or is that different, or is that in a different section that I'm maybe not familiar with? I guess that would be a question that I had.
Where is that?
The
27?
KinderCare Child Care Center that's just located, would be just south on 27th Street, south of Rawson.
The Rainbow.
Oh, Rainbow, sorry,
Yeah.
they were bought out, yeah, now Rainbow.
One off Villa, Statesman's Drive?
To me, it looks similar, just with dormers, a one-story building with dormers. So I guess that's just a question, because there seems to be a lot of concern about it being a one-story building, but to me, that is a one-story building also.
And I guess I'm not really concerned. The 27th, I understand we've got a whole document for 27th Street, but this is Rawson.
Okay,
This
so
is
that's
where-
the difference, that's what I'm asking.
In my
Is there a
mind, it is.
difference between that being on South 27th?
In my mind, this is
Okay,
different. So-
But it's the same overlay.
it's the same overlay.
It is the same overlay, but in my mind, this is Rawson, which is really one of the main entrances into cities. So,
Okay.
And again, I'm not criticizing the looks, but maybe the looks at this location.
No, I'll answer that.
Okay.
The roof pitch is different, and the aspect is different. There's a different ratio between the height of the building and the height of the roof.
Okay,
It's totally different.
but they're both single-story. It's just the roof,
That's
the
correct.
roof height, the roof
It's the,
pitch is
the
different.
overall appearance is totally different.
Okay. And then just to touch on the sidewalk, and I know that wasn't as much of a concern, but the little bit of the concern I have about connecting a sidewalk is that, actually in childcare, you know, you're not really promoting people besides current clients to kind of come into the building. Again, from a safety perspective, you know, just solicitors and people that might be walking the sidewalk, we actually, you know, prefer that they don't come up to the front entrance unless they are current clients, because we try to limit the amount of people that have access to the building. Again, it's security coded on all the doors, so people don't just have random access, but it is something that, you know, we try to be conscientious of how many people are coming in and out.
But the purpose of the sidewalk is you got, I think, 200 apartment buildings right behind you.
Right, yeah, I understand why it would be something that was requested. I'm telling you why, you know, we didn't include it in our plan. And
Mr. Morrow, you mentioned that something like gateway, and I did notice, and the reason why you're feeling confident about some staff comments we had, there's no objection to the waiver request at the intersection of the Riverwood Boulevard and Boston Avenue is not a corridor gateway, an attached corridor future land use plan.
I can't answer that. I can tell you Rawson's one of the main drags into town, so.
So it seems somewhat contradictory to your concern.
You know, and that boost and oil change place right there, it's one story, but it looks like a two-story building.
It's got,
Or is there a two-story there? Yeah,
this is two-story, this is two-story.
okay.
This is two-story.
That comment is because according to the future land use plan of the corridor, South 27th Street, so the corridor gateway would be the intersection of Rawson and 27th Street.
Third block west of that.
Yeah, so.
Well, it's, yeah.
And falsely to put a second story onto a use that this client wouldn't be using a second story. And
That's why I suggested maybe it's the wrong spot for this building. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Commissioner Hogan, then Alderman Dander.
One question, what's the reasoning that you don't want to go to the 52 spots? Is it because of more money or what? What's the reasoning?
And I'm not against the going to more spots. I think it was just kind of how the land was, that as far as the drop-off and how the design is my understanding.
The calculation actually was adjusted to 47 versus
Yes.
52.
Okay.
And our client has experience with 45 at the same licensure.
Okay, but we're telling her we want 47. What's the problem that you can't move up to 47?
Well, we
That's
can
my
go
question.
Jump to the site plan. Yeah, so the efficiencies, we could add, you can see how the grade is severe. It grades down about 20 feet from southeast to northwest. And as we push toward the east, we're getting into some severe grading. And then on the west side, you can see there's quite a bit of grading. To add a couple more stalls becomes quite a bit more difficult.
How many more stalls would you have to install?
2.
2 stalls? And you can't do that?
I think we could get the if it was 7, no. If the calculation, why we came today to make sure the calculation was correct. 2 stalls, we would take a look at doing that on the east side.
Okay, so we're gonna, do we look at the grading and all that, and that's how we come up with a number for what we need to have for parkings?
I haven't looked at the grading, so
Okay.
they will need to redesign the
Okay.
parking lot, yeah.
Thank you. So you're okay with adding 2?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I'm not against more parking. It's just that it didn't really work out with how it was designed. But we're not against having more parking. I mean, obviously, like he said, the more parking, the better. But it's just, if it worked with the land is how it was designed.
So if you're able to do it, you would come up to that number that the city's requesting you to come up to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Dandridge, then City Engineer Moore.
We've looked at other things to want to build on this parcel. It's an extremely difficult parcel to build on. Long, narrow, slope. Got an oil change place to the east. You've got Lowe's behind it. This is not a bad plan for this oblong site. I am in favor of moving along with Mr. Haley's recommendations of looking at and redesigning the parking lot for, well, let's say incorporating thoughts to how you could incorporate the safety, okay, features, and come up with a solution. You've got a site, you've got the building that was over in the Discovery Care. You've got more brick on that one.
Correct.
If you'd be more fair to go with a more brick look, where you've got a cultured brick on the bottom and then you've got another layer up on top, to kind of give it a better highlight. And it could be face brick on the front more, because then you're at least two-sided brick, okay? Or three-sided brick, and in the back could be different, because that's gonna face the wetlands anyways. I'm not saying four-sided architecture. You might be able to get us there with a little, making it look a little fancier. Okay?
Still got a roof that's twice the size of the building
I see the
itself.
roof. I like high roof lines. I always build my houses with hip roofs. And so,
I don't mind a hip roof, but that one's twice the size of the building.
you might want to break it up a little bit more and put, you've got those knockouts. Maybe dress it up with some more gables in it. Or put gables off the other side, just to dress it up that way.
Yeah, the intent there was the discussion about having not four-sided architecture. The three sides that are the most visible,
Is correct.
not the back side, have quite a bit more definition in that roof line.
Yeah, if you could incorporate more brick on it.
It's four-sided masonry now, with the siding
You got a
above.
belt line.
Yep,
Yeah.
and then stone at the entrance.
Mm-hmm. But I'm fine with putting something on there, because otherwise it's gonna sit vacant with these two houses on there. And, as the mayor mentioned, why wouldn't you look at talking to the condo association behind you, acquiring that? I'm sure it's gonna be cheap to get it, so then you can have access to that side road. I think it'd be
I don't know
a
if you-
worthwhile conversation.
It would be a challenge, I would think, with grades, but
Yeah, well, I do see that it drops from 190 at the road to, then all the way to the west part of the parcel, but, yeah, I see that you've got a 3-foot drop to the building there. But we're looking about, if people want to park on that road and then come in on the sidewalk, you could then create a sidewalk, as Mr. Commissioner Haley was talking about, and it killed two birds with one stone.
Gives you room for more parking,
And it gives you more room for parking.
gives you a safer exit.
And another exit off the back and out.
Sometimes life isn't easy.
So, yep. Just looking at it that way, that's all.
well, the Fairleigh stands, they don't have control of that property.
Sometimes
Correct.
life isn't easy. You haven't talked to them. I sit here and listen to all of this. You gotta make the effort sometimes. you're pushing back on this roof line thing that I tell you about. You know, this is the first, Commissioner Haley tells me about how he hasn't seen Strauss-Ville except for Thursday of the week before, which is,
Right.
I have not seen this at all until I got the packet. And now you're pushing back on the roof line and this and that and this and that.
Well, we weren't aware that you hadn't seen this, that was.
All I'm asking you to do is make the effort.
What specifically would you like the effort?
How many times have we told you? Go talk to the condo association. See if you can buy that strip of land and make an access point there. It's safer than having two access points off of Rawson Avenue. It'll also give you room to put some more parking. You can also scoot the building down so that you can maybe have some more parking on the west. You can probably also enlarge your playground area a little bit more. Take a look at reducing the size of your roof, or do some more work on the roof so that it doesn't look like such a big damn roof. Instead
Mayor,
of passing this forward, I would say refer it back to staff.
And could I ask one more question?
Sure.
Please talk to the Alderwoman. Because she is.
You need a neighborhood meeting on this one.
Huh?
You remember, we almost had a revolt here on the
Correct.
4-story hotel.
So I would
That
definitely
was
talk
$3
to the
million an
Alderwoman.
acre.
I mean, I don't know if she'd be against it, but she definitely would give you some ideas, so. And you need her approval too. There's 6 people, but she's very influential.
Just go to council?
Yeah.
This doesn't go to council, does it?
Site plan? No.
No.
Yeah, this is only plan commission approval, yeah.
Commissioner Leon, then city engineer.
City engineer, yes,
The city engineer.
First question, so has the county blessed your driveway locations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I was gonna make a recommendation, but I'll let Commissioner Leon go.
Commissioner Leon,
I was going to say, I was going to recommend refer back to staff, as the mayor mentioned.
is that a motion?
Is that, were you going to make a similar?
Yeah, well, staff recommends the table site plan, so I think I was going that direction. I think we've given a lot of input. I don't know how long they need to rework their drawings and come back, but have the discussion with the neighbor.
I think, yeah, the rework would include purchase of an adjacent property, so we don't know how long that would take, if that's the direction our client would want to go.
I think you've heard that we'd at least like to hear how that conversation goes before we make a decision, so. And there's other issues that, from site layout to aesthetics to other things. You tell me, do you need 2 weeks or do you need 2 months?
Do you need the answer now?
Do we have to?
We go uncertain. The date uncertain.
Well, if you table it, then it goes away until one of you calls it back. We can table it, and we can refer it back to staff, and at discretion of the staff. So we can do that. Then staff can put it back on the table. So, yeah, you can refer it back to staff.
For the record, that's what my recommendation would be.
We're referring it without prejudice.
Yeah, I'll second.
So, but it will need to go back to plan commission for the approval, right?
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're not saying go away, we're saying,
Go to
well, we
the-
are saying go away, but don't go away permanently. I did that with a smile on my face. It was a joke.
I'm smiling too.
Okay, all right, as long as you're smiling, it's okay. All those in favor of the move to refer to staff, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.